I'm Andreas. I'm a fourth year medical student, and today I'm answering your questions about medical school. Let's begin. Our first question, how much does medical school cost and is it worth it? Depending on where you go, in America at least, it can cost anywhere between $150,000 all the way up to $400,000, which is super, super, super expensive. But the good thing in America, I don't know about anywhere else in the country, anywhere else in the world, I just say, I think it's free anywhere else. But in any case, it's very easy to get student loans in America. And I say that because I know kids back home who cannot get a loan to buy a loaf of bread. But when it comes to getting $400,000 from a bank to go to medical school, even though their credit score is 300, banks have no problem just giving them money. So it's really easy to get student loans in America. Now, when it comes to the second part of that question, is it worth it? I don't know if you're talking about like the effort it takes to become a doctor or the debt you have to potentially put yourself in is that worth it? But I'll answer both. When it comes from like the question of is it worth all the effort to become a doctor? A lot of medical students fall into this trap where they think that only medical students have to work hard and it's like the only thing tough to do in life is become a doctor. And that's so untrue, guys. You have to get out of that mindset that only medical students work hard. At the end of the day, anything worth doing in life, you're going to have to work hard. Don't fall into that trap like every other medical student where they think that if they did anything else in this world, they wouldn't have to do any sort of work or like they'd be rich and famous without doing anything. But I'm here to tell you guys, anything worth doing in life, you're going to have to struggle, whether it's studying, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a plumber, whether you're anything, you're going to have to work hard. So the effort is given no matter what you do in life. So I don't want to hear about that. But if you're asking about like the debt that you potentially have to put yourself in, is that worth it? Nowadays, there's like these residency programs that if you work at a certain hospital for like 10 years, the residency program will actually pay off your student loans, which is really good. But of course, you're going to get like reduced pay. At least when you're like paid off, you're doing something you love. I mean, you're helping people and you're like fulfilling your life dream. And you have great job security. There's always need for doctors. And last but not least, like people like have this notion that doctors don't make any money. Like doctors, the average doctor makes $200,000-$300,000. Like that's a lot of money. Like with time, after you pay off those loans, you're going to be driving the fancy cars. You're going to be living the life, buying all the stuff you want. Just work hard, pay off those student loans, and then just rake in the money. I mean, it's taboo to say that doctors make money, but doctors make good money. So to answer your question, medical school, yes, it is expensive, but luckily we have student loans and they're really easy to get. And on top of it, medical school is absolutely worth the time, effort, and money it takes to become a doctor, because at the end of the day, you get to do what you want, you have great job security, and you make a lot of money. Our next question, can you have a social life outside of medical school? This is another question I get a lot, but do people now realize that I built a whole social media career while in medical school? 4 million plus followers, I think now, and that's a commitment. So obviously you can have a social life while in medical school. Now let's like dumb it down. Let's just like talk about like normal relationships with your friends, your peers, your friends back home, and your family. Of course, you can have a social life while in medical school. And I emphasize that so much because if you do not have a social life outside of like medical school, you will fail out. Like just think about it from like the perspective of not a medical student. Like let's go back to a plumber. If a plumber doesn't go home and like yell at his wife and like, oh yeah, I dealt with so much poop or something like that, or like go talk to other plumbers, they're not going to know what to do. Everything's just going to be kept inside, and eventually they're just going to explode and they're going to fail out. So it's really, 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 really important that you do have a social life. But if you're telling me if I can go out 9 times a week and go to Las Vegas, then go to Miami and then come back to medical school, you also can't do that. Like everything in moderation. Go to the gym, have fun with your friends, call your family. But don't be doing anything stupid. Like don't do anything that you know you can't do in medical school. So to answer that question, yes, you can absolutely have a social life. You need to have a social life in medical school. And if you don't have a social life, you will fail out. But everything in moderation. Our next question, what are some tips on how to study in medical school? So this is a question I love answering because a lot of medical students, they try to overcomplicate things, and it's not that complicated on how to study in medical school. So what you want to do is like usually you'd go to lecture, right? And that's a guarantee. And at lecture, the professor, he'll be showing you a bunch of PowerPoints, and the material on the PowerPoints is usually what you're tested on. So after lecture, you're going to go back to your dorm, and in your dorm, you kind of want to like absorb all the important information from that lecture. So try to remember that material, right? Once you remember that material, it's really, really, really important that you do spaced repetition. So let's say you remember something on Monday, you see it again on Tuesday. If you do a really good job on Tuesday, see it again on Thursday. And if you really remember it on Thursday, see it again next week, right? And there's programs that medical students use in order to do this spaced repetition where they make flashcards, and then like the flashcards will be shown to you in certain days depending on how well you know them, like when you're doing the flashcards in the computer. That's like programs like Anki. So spaced repetition. So like, again, go to lecture, remember it, and spaced repetition so you don't forget. Now, the most important step when it comes to studying is the weekends, because on the weekends you usually do practice questions. Now practice questions, not only do you get a chance to like test your knowledge and kind of like test yourself, practice questions are super, super, super important in medical school because of this. So let's say you're studying heart murmurs, right? And you've been studying them all week. And then on the weekend, you're doing like 20 practice questions. Let's say you get 15 of those practice questions wrong. Obviously there's something wrong. Obviously you're studying the wrong thing or you're not grasping the material. So not only will the practice questions point out that, hey, I'm not studying what I'm supposed to, I should be studying this, it will actually like guide you on the topics that will be tested on, like depending on what the questions are, those questions and those topics that the questions ask are usually what's like asked on the test. So you get to test your knowledge, you get to like redirect your studying, and then you basically get like a preview of what's going to be on the test. So practice questions are king in medical school. Don't wait till last minute. Just do them so you can correct your studies. All in all, go to lecture, learn the lecture, spaced repetition and questions, and then you'll ace every test. Next, we have a question from @_undefined_A. What is the hardest year of medical school? If I'm being completely honest with you, year 3 of medical school was the toughest year of medical school for me. And I say this because it's basically the setup of medical school that made it hard. So for those of you who don't know, the first 2 years of medical school are in the classroom. So that's basically when you go to lecture, you learn because the professor basically gives you the PowerPoints. And based on the PowerPoints, that's the material on the test. You study that, you do well on the test. But in years 3 and 4, that's the clinical years where you basically wake up, you go to the hospital, you learn things at the hospitals, like the doctors and residents show you things, you follow them around, whether it's pediatrics, OB-GYN, surgery and all that. Then you go home, and then when you go home, you have to do self-study. And the self-study is important because every 6 to 12 weeks, you have these board exams for that particular rotation that you're doing. And if you fail that, you basically fail the entire rotation. If you fail the test, you don't have to like repeat the entire rotation. You just have to like remediate that test that you failed, right? So it's not too bad. But what makes it tricky though is that up until like your second year of medical school, your whole entire life, you've been going to school, the teacher teaches you, and then basically what they teach you is on the test, and then that's how you do it. But with years 3 and 4 medical school, you basically go home and you do these practice questions on UWorld or something like that. And like for me, I was getting them all wrong, and I had to figure out that like I couldn't be discouraged by getting them wrong. You basically have to get the questions wrong, then based on like the questions that you see, you have to see the answers and like see what they're testing you on, and then use those topics, and then study those topics, and then after you learn those topics, go back to the questions and then see if you understand them, and then from there, you get ready for the test. I'm making it sound a lot harder, but for me, it was just a difficult transition of having to self-study and like not having professors showing me PowerPoints and all that. So at the end of the day, year 3 was the hardest year for me in medical school. Okay, our next question: do you have free time to do anything else but study? This question is just like the social ed question. If you're a medical student and all you do is study, I promise you that you will fail out. Like your body cannot take it. You need to do something else other than study in medical school. The girl who asked this question, Tori, I know her personally. She likes to bake. She likes to cook. She's a liar. She knows the answer to this question. Of course, you can do a lot of other things besides just study in medical school. And the caveat to this, if you want to be able to do a lot of stuff that you enjoy in medical school besides just study all day, you need to value your time. And how do you value your time? You set a schedule. If you have a schedule, you'll be gold. And on that schedule, of course, you have to set time to study, set time to go to like mandatory things like lecture and like peer groups and all that. Then once you have a set schedule and you follow that schedule, you'll be surprised about how much extra time you have. You can go to the gym, but you can go out to eat with your friends. Like, look at me, I make TikToks all day and I'm in medical school. So obviously you have a lot of free time to do a lot of things other than just study. So to answer that question, yes, you can do a lot of other things besides just study medical school. Next, we have a question from @Maria_Leong. Biggest piece of advice for incoming first year medical students. One piece of advice that I think is most important that all first year medical students or incoming medical students understand is that they need to set the right goals. And I keep harping on this, but the right goal should not be like, I'm going to get an A on every test I ever take in medical school. No, that's not the right goal. The right goal in medical school in order to succeed is that you need to make your happiness your priority. Being happy should be your main goal in medical school. I know that sounds a little cliche, but if you prioritize your own happiness and do things that you love, in addition to studying, in addition to doing all your duties that you should be doing, I'm telling you, you're going to not only get a lot further in life, but you're going to get a lot better grades. You're going to get a lot further as a doctor in general, because you need to take care of that body. You need to take care of your mental health and your physical health, because that's the machine. That's what allows you to do all these things, right? If your main goal is just, oh yeah, I'm just going to study all day medical school and I'm not going to see any friends and I'm just going to sit in my room and mope all day, you're not going to make it far. I promise you, you're not going to make it far. You're going to be doing double the work. There's going to be kids who are having like triple the fun as you, studying and going to class and all that, and they're going to be doing a lot better than you. So it's important, set the right goals, and your main number one goal in medical school is your own happiness. Put yourself first. Next, we have a question from @Duda7. How to make money while in medical school. When you start medical school, you basically sign a contract that you're not allowed to have a job while in medical school, because I know I keep downplaying it and all that, but at the end of the day, medical school requires a lot of time. It's a commitment. You have to study. Like, you don't have time to have a full-on job while you're in medical school. But at the end of the day, medical school is filled with kids who are supposed to be the smartest of the smart. Just just put your mind to work and just figure out a way to make money. Like, it's not that hard. You don't have to make $1 billion in one day, but like start with $10. Like, figure out how to make $10 in one day, just doing a hobby that you like. And then from there, like, make more money. You didn't hear this from me. But at the end of the day, you guys are all geniuses. You guys are smart kids in medical school. Figure out a way to make money. There's other things in life than just studying. And I mean, that's important to be a great doctor. But you can have like a little side gig, a little hobby that you like take some time time off, and it can be profitable. So you guys are smart. You guys can figure it out. At real.lewisb, what happens if you fail an exam? It's crazy you asked this question because I don't know how many times I've seen kids who like fail a bunch of the exams in medical school. The next year you see them walk on stage graduating as doctors. And I don't mean like I say this as a good thing because like I think like medical students overstress on this, right? They think that if they fail one exam or like two exams, it's going to be the end of their career and like that's going to be the defining moment of their life. But in reality, right? Maybe I never failed an exam in medical school, like because we study. I mean, obviously you have to study, right? But if you fail 13 in a row, you're going to fail out. But at the same time, like in your first 2 years of medical school, I think that you can actually fail a couple without it like having to like repeat the term. But I think the worst case scenario is if you fail an exam or 2 or 3, whatever, it'll lower your GPA or it'll lower whatever grade you need to achieve for that certain term. And you might have to repeat it, but you can fail an exam and then still pass the term and you'll be fine. You just move on. Now, when it comes to years 3 and 4, like I said, if you fail that, like the board exam with every rotation, you can pass the rotation, but you have to just retake that exam. And then once you retake all the exams in which you pass all the board exams, I think you get like 3 chances to pass each one. Yeah, you're free to go, right? You're free to go. But there's also step 1 and step 2. And there's a lot of emphasis to pass step 1 and step 2 on the first try. Just study hard, guys. For these tests over here, just study hard, pass the first time. It'll save you a lot of trouble. But I know kids who did not pass the first time in these exams, and like I'm not trying to inspire you guys to not pass, but they get residencies and they become doctors. So all I'm trying to say here, end all be all, is that okay, you can fail exams in medical school, and it's not gonna like cancel you from being a doctor. You can still become a doctor if you fail a test in medical school. A lot of kids do it. This is a good one. At Justin Xu asks, do you regret going into medical school? I get this question a lot too, and I'm gonna give you 2 answers for this, right? One from the perspective of like a general medical student who just went through 4 years of medical school, and then one through my personal perspective. So from like a general like medical student, no, like I don't think like there's moments where you're like struggling to study and like you're like, oh my god, it's so hard, I regret going, but then you just study, you ace the test, or like, you know, you just do good on the test, you pass, and then you're out there partying the next night and you feel fine, and then that was just like a passing moment where you thought that like you regret it for like 2 seconds. But at the end of the day, once you complete it, and then once you get through that term, and then once you graduate, I promise you there's no better feeling. You know, there's like your parents are happy, your family's happy, you're happy, you have a lifetime job, like I said, you're gonna make a lot of money, right? You're gonna do things, you're gonna help people are gonna look up to you. I mean, it's just an amazing career. Why would you regret it? And the only way to become a doctor is via medical school. So how can you regret a pathway where it's like there's only one pathway to become a doctor, and if your goal is to truly become a doctor, why would you regret going to medical school? So from the perspective of just like a student who wants to become a doctor, I don't like very few students like really regret going to medical school. I mean, like I said, you might have like days where you're down and all that, but at the end of the day, medical students are very happy to graduate. Now, I get this question because everyone's like, oh, social media, you're going to make so much money, all that. Guys, do you understand that this social media stuff, all this stuff, TikTok, paddywhack, whatever stuff, is not going to last forever? What do you think? People are just going to watch me like I'm just going to yell at a camera for the rest of my life? No, this happened by coincidence. Like this was never the plan to become like a videographer and all these lights and like TikTok and yelling and all that and being funny and all that. I enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it's not going to last forever. But at the end of the day, like the career of being a doctor is unmatched in my eyes, at least. TikTok and all those video guys and the influencers and viral videos, you are here today and you are gone tomorrow. So I have no regrets of going to medical school, and I'm excited to see what my future holds, and hopefully I can figure out a way to tie my social media with medical school and like make a nice union, not like one funny guy, one doctor guy. No, I want to like combine them together so it's like it works. You know, I can't be 2 characters all the time. So no, I do not regret going to medical school. At Lucas Mead 22. What's one myth about medical school that you can debunk? I think if you watch this video, I like debunked every medical student myth there is out there. Like I said, you don't have to study all day, right? You can have a social life, you can have fun, you can do things you want to do, as long as you do everything in moderation. If you set a schedule, if you value your time and don't say yes to everything, you're going to have plenty of time to do the things you want to do in addition to study, in addition to becoming a doctor, right? So it's not all about studying medical school. I keep saying that. So that's the myth I'm busting. Medical school is a lot more than just sitting in a room and studying all day. You can have fun, all in moderation. And the more you enjoy your life while you're in medical school, usually the better you do. All right. _G.R is asking, how long is the program? So after high school, go off to college. And then in college, if you want to go to medical school, you usually get a bachelor's degree in some sort of like science related subject because it helps you on the MCAT. But at the end of the day, I don't even think you need to do something science as long as you have a bachelor's degree. Now, while you're in college and even after, you take the MCAT and then you apply to medical school. So once you're in medical school, that's 4 years and then you graduate with your MD. But depending on what specialty you want, that's how much longer training you have to do. So let's say you want to be a family medicine physician. The residency program, like basically I think is about 3 years. But if you want to do something like neurosurgery, the residency program is like 8 years. So to become a neurosurgeon, it can take you, like with medical school and residency, 12 years. But if you want to be a family medicine doctor, it can take you 7 years to become a doctor and like a practicing doctor. At Anifa Carmela is asking, what keeps you motivated when school gets hard? This is probably my favorite question I've been asked so far because it basically ties everything I just talked about in one question. And I know so many kids who, while they're studying, they get down the dumps and they get sad and they don't want to study anymore and they lose their motivation. And my advice to you is that first off, while you're in medical school, while you're studying, you can't give yourself an out. Like you can't say, okay, if I don't study, I'm just going to do this instead. No, when you go to medical school, when you study, you have to say, okay, I'm going to do this. There's no out. I'm just going to get this done. But under the circumstances when you're studying really hard and you just get burnt out, you got to toss those books and just go for a walk, call your friends, call your family, and just laugh. Take care of your soul because like I said, this is where having a social support group and this is where having friends and bonds and close relationships with your peers matters because you're going to meet up in these times and you guys are all going to feel down the dumps sometimes and you guys are just going to laugh. Like half the time when I meet up with my friends, I'm like, you're more screwed than I am. I mean, you just start laughing and like you have a good time and all of a sudden tears turn into tears of laughter. And that's what's just so important. You cannot be isolated in medical school. You have to get out there. You have to make friends because sometimes it's going to be you down the dumps and other times it's going to be you pulling your friends out of the dumps, right? So be there for one another and that's all the motivation you need. Well, that was all the questions that you guys asked me. I hope I answered all your medical school inquiries and I really hope you still want to go to medical school after watching this video. If I didn't get to any of your questions or if you still have questions, make sure you drop a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them, all right? Thank you.